Welcome to Life Stories. What happens when a cunning stepmother underestimates the daughter she tried to humiliate? When greed, betrayal, and ambition collide, the truth has a way of surfacing. In tonight's story, a stepmother's cruel game backfires. Lauren Monroe faces public humiliation at her father's retirement party only to turn the tables in the most spectacular way. But when revenge escalates into a full-scale corporate war, who will come out on top? Stay tuned to find out, and don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's tale of power, legacy, and the ultimate downfall of deception. The crystal champagne glasses clinked in unison, a symphony of wealth and celebration. In the grand ballroom of the Lexington Hotel, chandeliers sparkled like stars overhead, casting a golden glow on the well-dressed guests who laughed and sipped their drinks, basking in the opulence of the evening. It was a night to honor my father, Richard Monroe, the man who had built Monroe Industries from the ground up, a man who had spent over 30 years transforming a small manufacturing business into a powerhouse. And now, at 63, he was stepping down. But the night was not about him, not really. Standing at the center of it all, my stepmother, Victoria, lifted her crystal flute high. A dazzling smile stretched across her flawless, made-up face. The diamonds on her fingers caught the light as she raised her third toast of the evening. "To my darling husband's well-earned retirement," she announced, her voice smooth yet dripping with satisfaction. "And to selling this tired old company for something far more exciting." A polite round of applause rippled through the room. But I saw it. The way my father's expression faltered. The brief flash of sadness before he forced a smile and nodded along. As if he agreed. As if the company he had poured his life into was just another asset to be discarded. Victoria's hand rested lightly on his arm. Her grip possessive. Proprietary. She had spent 5 years playing the perfect wife, standing at his side with an adoring smile while quietly pushing her own agenda forward. But now, with my father officially retiring, she didn't even bother with subtlety. I had expected this. What I didn't expect was her next move. Her gaze found me across the crowded room, her emerald eyes gleaming with something wicked. Her lips curled into a knowing smirk as she raised her voice, making sure everyone could hear her. "Of course," she continued. "Some people thought they'd inherit this company." The hum of conversation died instantly. Heads turned. The air grew thick with tension. "Poor little Lauren," she said with mock sympathy. "Thinking Daddy would just hand over a multi-million-dollar business to someone who can't even keep a relationship longer than 6 months." A hush fell over the room, the weight of her words pressing down like a heavy storm cloud. Some guests awkwardly looked away, swirling their drinks as if fascinated by the bubbles in their champagne. A few board members shifted uncomfortably, their unease plain on their faces. I sat still, my fingers tightening slightly around the stem of my glass. My heart pounded, but my face remained impassive. I wouldn't give her the reaction she wanted. Beside her, my father simply looked down at his shoes, saying nothing. As always, Victoria let out a dramatic sigh, her voice laced with false kindness. "It's really for the best. Running a company requires maturity, experience, a proper family image." She rested a manicured hand over her perfectly flat stomach, a deliberate reminder of her recent announcement that she was trying to give my father a real heir. Heat flushed up my neck, but I swallowed it down, keeping my expression neutral. Let her have her moment. She had no idea what was coming. She turned to me, her smile sickly sweet. "Would you like to say something, Lauren?" she asked, tilting her head. "Perhaps congratulate your father on his retirement and his wise decision about the company's future." I exhaled slowly and stood. All eyes were on me now. I smoothed down the lapels of my black blazer, taking my time, allowing the moment to stretch. At 28, I was young for a CFO, but I had worked for every promotion, every step up the ladder. Unlike Victoria, I hadn't married my way into privilege, I had earned my place. She thought I was just another middle manager, kept around out of my father's guilt after my mother's passing. She was wrong. Actually, I said, my voice clear and steady, I do have something to say. Victoria's smirk widened. Certain she had backed me into a corner. She was expecting tears. Pleading, perhaps even a dramatic outburst. Instead, I reached for my briefcase, unlatched it, and pulled out a thick envelope. Across the room, I caught the subtle nods of several board members. 6 months ago, while Victoria had been busy redecorating the Hampton House and planning extravagant yacht club fundraisers, Monroe Industries had undergone a quiet restructuring, one that the board had approved unanimously. I stepped forward, my heels clicking against the marble floor, the weight of the envelope in my hand. My father, I said, transferred majority ownership to a new holding company. Victoria's smirk faltered. My father's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. I turned to the crowd, scanning the room before delivering the final blow. The holding company is called ELM Enterprises. I let the name settle for a moment, watching as realization dawned. Victoria's fingers tightened around her glass. What are you talking about? She demanded. I laid the envelope on the table and carefully began arranging the documents. These papers, I said, tapping the crisp pages, show that I own 67% of Monroe Industries through ELM Enterprises. My father retains 30%, and the remaining 3% is divided among key employees. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, chairs scraping against the floor as guests leaned forward, trying to get a closer look. Victoria lunged for the papers, her manicured nails scratching at them, as if she could physically undo what was already sealed in ink. This is impossible, she shrieked. Richard, tell her this is impossible. But my father was smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in years. It's all legal. Victoria, he said quietly. Lauren earned this. She's been practically running the company for the past 2 years while I've been distracted. His voice was calm, but I heard the regret beneath it. Victoria's face turned an alarming shade of red beneath her makeup. But we had plans. The house in the Hamptons, the yacht club membership. I reached into my briefcase once more. About that, I said smoothly, pulling out another document. Her world was crumbling, and I wasn't done yet. Victoria's breath came fast and shallow, her knuckles white as she clutched the back of a chair for support. The perfect image of control she had crafted for years was slipping, cracking like fine china. What is this? She sputtered, her voice rising in pitch. I placed the second document carefully on the table, smoothing it out like a dealer laying down the winning hand. This, I said evenly, is a full report of company expenses. Specifically, the rather generous consulting fees being paid to your brother's marketing firm. A murmur spread through the room. Some board members exchanged glances, others stiffened in their seats. Victoria's brother, Ethan, was notorious for being between jobs. Yet he somehow lived in a penthouse and drove an imported sports car. I had suspected for months that he was bleeding company funds. But now, I had proof. And I continued, sliding another page forward. The business trips that somehow always ended at luxury spas and resorts. Of course, it's purely coincidental that you and Ethan happened to be at those same locations at the same time. Right? Victoria's face twisted in fury. You little. Careful. I cut in smoothly, tilting my head. You wouldn't want to say something immature in front of all these very experienced, very respectable professionals. A few quiet chuckles broke through the tension. Victoria turned on my father, eyes blazing. Richard, are you going to let her do this to me? Your wife. My father straightened, shoulders squaring for the first time in a long time. My late wife, Elizabeth, helped me build this company, he said, his voice firm but weary. She made me promise it would go to our daughter when the time was right. He turned to me then. And for the first time in years, I saw something I had longed for: acknowledgement. Lauren has proven herself more than capable, he said, his voice thick with emotion. And you, he exhaled, shaking his head. You proved yourself too, just not in the way you intended. Victoria's lips parted. But no words came. The weight of the moment pressed down on her. On all of us. The air in the ballroom felt charged, thick with something unspoken. Then, suddenly, she let out a sharp laugh, bitter, unhinged. You think this is over, she hissed. You think you've won? She reached for her purse with shaking hands, yanking it open so violently that its contents spilled onto the floor. Lipstick, credit cards, a gold compact case, and a small USB drive. The second I saw it, my stomach clenched. My father's eyes locked onto the drive, his expression shifting from confusion to realization. I bent down slowly, picking it up between my fingers. This wouldn't happen to be the USB that went missing from my father's office a few months ago, would it? I asked, my voice soft but sharp. Victoria's breath hitched. I turned the drive over in my palm. The one that contains proprietary company designs. My gaze lifted to hers, cold and unwavering. Tell me, Victoria, were you looking for a buyer? The room was silent, deadly silent. Then Victoria moved. She lunged toward me, her hand raised, her perfectly manicured nails flashing under the chandelier light. I didn't flinch. I didn't have to. Because before she could so much as graze my skin, my father caught her wrist. His grip firm, unyielding. Security, I said calmly, nodding toward the two guards stationed by the doors. Escort Mrs. Monroe out. The guards stepped forward. Victoria yanked her arm free, her eyes darting wildly across the room as if searching for an ally. But there were none. Your personal belongings, I continued, will be shipped to you after they've been checked for any other company property. Of course. Her mouth opened, then closed. A strangled noise of rage left her lips. And Victoria, I added, my tone saccharine sweet, don't worry about the prenup. It has a lovely clause about corporate espionage. The moment the words left my lips, the fight drained from her. Her shoulders slumped, her chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. She knew. It was over. The guards flanked her, leading her toward the exit as murmurs of disbelief and excitement filled the room. I watched her go, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just the quiet realization that a chapter, one long, bitter, and painful, was finally closing. As the doors swung shut behind her, I let out a slow breath. My fingers still curled around the USB drive. My father turned to me, his face unreadable. Then, after what felt like a lifetime, he pulled me into a hug. A real one. Tight. Warm. Safe. I'm so sorry. Lauren, he whispered, his voice thick. I've been such a fool. I swallowed hard, blinking back the unexpected sting of tears. I know, Dad, I murmured, pressing my forehead against his shoulder. I know. But we weren't done. Because as the applause started, as the congratulations poured in, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A message from Marcus, our head of IT security. We have a situation. My heart stilled. Something told me this was only the beginning. 3 months later, Monroe Industries was stronger than ever. After the scandal broke, the company's stock price had dipped, but it rebounded quickly, stronger, more resilient. Clients and investors alike respected how we had handled the crisis, proving that leadership was about integrity, not just profit. As for my father, he was finally free. Truly free. He had retired in every sense of the word, traveling the world, sending me postcards from places my mother had always dreamed of visiting. He had found his peace. And for that, I was grateful. Victoria and her brother weren't as lucky. Their crimes had unraveled into something far bigger than just corporate fraud. Investigations revealed offshore accounts, shell companies, and a long history of targeting wealthy businessmen for marriage scams. My father and I had only been the latest marks, number 8 on their list. Now, they were facing years in federal prison. But that wasn't the part that mattered to me. One evening, as I sat in my office, the CEO's office, I glanced at the framed photo on the wall. My mother, Elizabeth Monroe, standing proudly in front of the company's first building. She had built this legacy with my father. And now, I had protected it. I traced the familiar outline of her wedding ring, which I wore around my neck, and smiled. They had played checkers. I had played chess. And I had won. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Life Stories for more incredible tales of resilience and triumph.